What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Opening Line. Today is Tuesday, September 28th. It's almost October, and if it's Tuesday, that means we're back talking a little bit of PGA. We got PGA resuming this week after having the Ryder Cup last week. They got the Sanderson's Farm Championship this week.
Yeah, Sanderson Farms, interesting setup here, but we shouldn't glance over 2 weeks ago, right? We had the Ryder Cup, but more importantly, you nailed the outright in the Homa bet 2 weeks ago. You also had McNeely 2 weeks ago, and I had Mito. We had the top three guys in there. Granted, only one of them won, but I think we'll take having the top three guys considering we're on the right track there.
Yeah, that was one of the weird weeks there 2 weeks ago. Having out there in California in that event in Napa, where I had the two guys and never even had to contemplate hedging on a Sunday, because there was only really the whole day there was only two guys that could win that were within a couple shots the whole entire day, and it was the two guys I had. So it was a very rare stress-free outright cash, which was nice because a couple weeks before that, had struggles where everything just kind of seemed to go wrong, right? And it's the ebb and flow of betting, and then all of a sudden you go scorched earth for a while. So that just kind of led into, kind of kicked off going scorched earth because you had that. Then into the Ryder Cup where, a lot of the future bets didn't do necessarily the best time. We got a bunch of value, but the daily bets, I think went 22, 4 and 1 or something like that for the Ryder Cup, and then on top of that went 7-0 in NFL last week. So you kind of add all that together, and that was a pretty good about 8-9 day span right there. Hopefully we can keep it going at the Sanderson this week, but we do know that variance does come back to bite you, where it can't expect outright winners every week or to win every single head-to-head bet, but we're going to try to do it again this week.
Yeah, it does feel damn good when you can sort of have a bunch of winners in a row. I had 2 good college football weeks in a row after having 2 god awful ones. So we're waiting for the downswing, but hopefully it holds off here for a couple more weeks.
Yeah, definitely. So we got Sanderson's Farm Championship this week. It's really the second event of the fall series, or whatever you call it, the beginning of the 2022 season. They keep changing the name of everything every year, it seems. So they've been playing this course for a while now. I think it's about the 7th year they've had it down there. It's Country Club at Jackson. Normal setup for PGA Tour event with 72 holes with the cut and everything. Just a pretty weak field because a lot of the top players are taking this time to kind of rest, right? Because, in about a month, they have all these other events that are, the Zozo and CJ Cup and stuff like that, where the top players in the world are going to be playing in those. So they're using this time to kind of rest up. So you're getting all the guys who are not the top players in the world who got their cards back last year, or guys that made it through the Korn Ferry Tour Q School finals, either from the Korn Ferry Tour got onto here or through the finals. Or guys who are sponsor exemptions or Monday qualifiers. So the fields tend to be pretty weak, which means that, there's tends to be valued on the board in these events because you have higher variance. So it's going to be interesting to see where you think there's value this week, and also where I have my value this week, kind of talking through that.
Yeah, it is interesting. We have some crossover here, which is always good to see. But yeah, the field is interesting. It's not too dissimilar from 2 weeks ago, except I would say it's worse even, right? And that field was pretty bad to begin with. There's no big names. At least we had Rahm in there. But there's a lot of, the bottom of this field isn't particularly great, right? I think it opens up the opportunity for a long shot. This happens a few times a year, right? Where there's a few guys at the top that maybe don't have the best winning ability, guys that don't necessarily go off like some of the elite players can in a field like this, and it adds a lot of opportunity. And I saw in your outrights there, you have a lot of big dogs listed in your outright board this week.
Yeah, this field's actually a heck of a lot worse than what we saw in Napa by a significant margin. At least that's what I have. I mean, if you look at the top of the board in Napa, I think we had you had Rahm, you had Matsuyama over there, I believe. Here, the top guys are Burns, Zalatoris, Garcia, and Connors. That's nowhere near the same, level of playing field, because you had some guys in that same ballpark, playing over there in Napa, like Kevin Na and stuff like that I would have had rated higher than these guys. These are a lot of guys that haven't necessarily. I mean, Burns is one and stuff like that, but a lot of these other guys haven't necessarily closed on the PGA Tour that well. So There's no
Yeah.
reason to be, backing any of these guys at, 15 or 25 to 1. The value is going to be further down the board just because that's kind of the way the course sets up here. So Country Club of Jackson here, it's kind of a different course in the PGA Tour where off the tee game doesn't matter as much. So you can kind of hit it all over the place. Distance is a little bit helpful, but it's all pretty much wedges and putting. So what that means is it ends up feeling more like a Corn Ferry Tour course for these guys, meaning that the scores are going to be low. Winning scores between like 18 and 22 under, like literally, I think each of the last 6 or 7 years. So the guys know what score they need to get to. A lot of those birdies are coming on the par fives. So if you got guys who are good with par fives, guys who are good with wedges, and guys that can putt, well, that pretty much sums up what happens every week on the Corn Ferry Tour because those courses are played easier, a little bit shorter, and are pretty much a wedge fest. So that's why you've seen here at this course, I mean, obviously Garcia won here last year, but that's why you've seen a lot of guys at this course win who haven't necessarily been the best players, right? I mean, you've had, you've had Gribble, Armour, Champ, Munoz, Garcia, not the best players in the world, but all kinds of different types of players, but there's just guys who got hot with their wedges and putting for the week. Yeah,
and if I remember, is this the event where Sergio was closing his eyes on short putts? Is this the event where he was doing that?
I don't recall. I'm not sure.
Okay. He went crazy with the putter though. I fairly remember it, but he's historically not a good putter. But you're right in that. I give a little bit of boost to the driving distance this week, a little bit of a downgrade, or I guess a little bit of a boost to guys that are less accurate, which they kind of run together, right? Like at times they can run together. And then, like you said, kind of average on the approach, maybe slightly above average to shorter approach, and a little bit of a boost to the putting. So kind of a unique mix of guys that drive it well and putt it well. It's an interesting approach here. And I like what you said. There's sort of ways to get there, right? And you talk about ways to get there. Maybe guys that drive it really well, putt it really well, or guys that will be in play and can hit a lot of close wedge shots and make the putts, right? Like you probably have to have like 2 of those 3 skills to get through here.
And if you get all 3, you just win.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but when you have a field that's weak like this, it's really hard for a guy to have all 3 of those working, right? Because if he did, he'd be a lot better player, right? He probably would have won a bunch in the PGA Tour if he could drive it straight, hit good wedges and putt, right? It sounds so easy, but it'd be like a video game at that point. So, So that being said, let's hop into the outrights here. You have, I think you bet with 3 or 4 guys. I think 3 guys. I think I bet 10 guys, but only 2 of them are below 90 to 1. And nothing below 50 to 1. So all of it pretty much for me adds up to about 1 unit at risk to win 10, which is what I have pretty much every week. So let's hop in. You could talk about your outright here first.
Yeah, I'll give away one of my 3 here. My biggest edge of the week, Charley Hoffman, 36 to 1. This was a little bit of a rogue number in my opinion. Most of the other sites had him around 25. I made him about 20. So I don't think that I would necessarily play the 25, but anything above 30, I think you can play Hoffman this week. We talked about it, right? Like distance, approach play, particularly with shorter irons, and putting. And he does all of those things well. Like he can do all of those things well. Admittedly, he would win more if he did them all well at the same time. Right? Like we saw it at Valero when he finished second last year. He had every facet of his game working. And we saw it a couple more times, like Charles Schwab, where he finished third. And he generally just gained strokes in all 3 of those categories, and generally in much tougher fields than these, right? So he should be able to gain strokes, even more strokes. If we were able to play this, tournament out a number of times, you would expect him to gain some distance off the tee, which I think most people would be surprised to know that he is, well above average in terms of driving distance. He gained 11 yards on the fields last year, with much better fields than this, and guys can hit way further than the field he's going to see here. And he doesn't really miss a ton of fairways, right? Like he's below average in terms of accuracy, but he's not terribly low. He maybe hits just a few percentage points lower, but the approach play is sort of where he gets it, and he's been incredibly consistent. So I do like Hoffman, especially in these weaker fields where maybe he doesn't, have to go crazy, but if he has all 3 of those things working for him, I think he has a good chance to win it. And 36, like I said, was a little bit of a rogue number. This was pretty much like 25, 26 or where else. That was over at FanDuel. It was still available as of this morning. So get in there and bet it, because I think there's a decent chance this one goes down at least a couple ticks here.
All right. One of my best value plays is going to be pretty far down the board there. It's going to be JT Poston at 150 to 1. This is just a big number for a guy who's won on the PGA Tour before and who almost won last season. It was down the stretch over there in Kentucky, one of the opposite field events, which feels kind of like that, an opposite field event. It feels like it had great success at this golf course. Made all 5 cuts, finished 3rd and 11th the last 2 years here. And if we just kind of look at Poston's pedigree, right, he just doesn't make many mistakes. When he actually won his PGA Tour event, he didn't make a bogey that week, which is absolutely nuts. And he is known for having an absolute scorching putter, right?
Yeah.
Not the best driver in the world, but you don't necessarily have to do that here. So if you just get a hot wedge game and he gets a hot putter, he putts better in Bermuda. This is Bermuda this week. 150 is just kind of a little bit of an egregious price. Considering how bad this field is. I think he should be closer to about 100 to 1. And that 150 was available in multiple places, so it's still out there now. I think that's going to be bet down once people kind of scroll through the odds. They're not necessarily in golf mode yet on Tuesday after Ryder Cup when football's going on. So sometimes odds stay out there a little bit longer, or people may not even bet as much on golf because it's football season.
Do you think this number is a little bit inflated because he was like minus 3.5 strokes putting last week or 2 weeks ago?
No, I don't think there's any difference in that. I think it's just the fact that odds makers don't pay attention to golf during football season.
Fair enough.
You'll get some odds that are too high just because they're just tossing numbers out there because their volume is going to be less. So they're not as worried about it. People aren't betting as much on this event. So they don't necessarily go over things with a fine-tooth comb where they might have, if this was, let's say, an event in June, and there wasn't football going on, it was just baseball.
Yeah, right.
They would probably look at this a little bit more and maybe trim this down on opening odds, and you might go 20 or 130.
What would you play this to?
I would play it down about 110, 115. I think still fine. I make it 100 to 1, so that's still a sizable edge in my book.
Okay, just in case that moves by the time someone comes in and watches it. So you have one more in this same range.
Yeah,
the putting machine here.
Same number, kind of going this same thought process. Denny McCarthy here, 150 to 1 as well, available on multiple books. I make him 85 to 1 here, slightly better odds than Poston, just because I think he has a little bit higher upside, because we've seen McCarthy go absolutely scorched earth in terms of putting, just gaining massive amounts per round, and it's always on fast Bermuda greens. This week we have Bermuda greens that are running 12.5 in the stem meter, which is about half a foot to a foot quicker than what we normally see in the PGA Tour. This is right up his alley. Last 3 times he's played here, he's gone 6th, 18th, and 7th. So clearly it's a course he likes. And, sure, if it happens once, maybe you can say it's luck. But when it happens 3 times in a row, and you can kind of look at, our description of what we needed, right? You either needed guys to hit it far, hit good wedges, or putting. Well, he putts good, and he doesn't hit it accurate off the tee, but he can hit it long enough, and sometimes he goes scorched earth with wedges too. So I could see where he putts hot, and one of the other parts of his game works for the week, and God forbid he can get all 3. He has a good chance to win at a high number of 150. Both McCarthy and Poston are guys to where if they're in contention on Sunday, I'm not as scared in comparison to like other players. If you're looking at guys that are, in that 40 to 1 range in this field, maybe like an Aaron Wise or Mackenzie Hughes or Griot or Varner, like if they're heads up against them, they're not really that big of a dog on a Sunday. But we're 150 here, and those guys are in the 40 range. So I absolutely love these guys at 150. You just put a small amount of change on them, and you could have some pretty good hedge equity come Sunday.
Yeah, and you talked about McCarthy and how he can go scorched earth with the putter, scorched earth with the wedges, and how he likes it here. He gained 4 strokes putting last year. He gained about 2 strokes the year before with a little paltry T18, gaining 2 strokes with the putter. And then in 2019, I believe he finished 7th. Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. And he gained almost 10 strokes putting that week. So the last 3 seasons, as his putter has gotten to be one of the better putters on the PGA Tour, the results have followed here at the Country Club of Jackson.
Yep. So let's hop into some of the other bets we got. Finishing position bets. We both have one that matches here, which is always a good sign. So I'll kind of let you talk about that one.
Yeah, as soon as I saw this in the simulation that I ran this morning, I was like, oh, I bet Paulie's going to be on this one. Vincent Whaley, top 40, plus 250. Guy that was incredibly consistent when he kind of popped onto the PGA Tour back last year. And he had something like, what was it, 1, 2, 3, 6 or 7 top 40s in a row, 6 or 7 top made cuts in a row. That has sort of petered out a little bit. He started playing a little bit tougher events, a little bit tougher fields, and he missed a couple cuts in there. But I do like him this week. This is just not a very good field. I mean, we talked about at the beginning. And Vincent Whaley is just incredibly consistent. He is an above average driver of the ball. He is above average in terms of distance off the tee. You want some more in his approach game. You probably want some more in his chipping, but realistically, he's just an average PGA Tour golfer, I think, at this point, and he's playing in a much worse field. And this is an event he should make a cut in. And if he makes the cut, he has played it out fairly well, pretty much all the time. Ever since he's sort of been a regular on PGA Tour, when he's made the cut, he's hung in there, right? Like he really just needs to make the cut in this event. I think I see one event, the Rocket Mortgage, where he made the cut and didn't get through their top 40 in the weekend. So, you give me odds, essentially to make the cut here. I like Whaley in this spot.
Yeah, I liked Whaley at 250 as well. I think that number should have been probably closer to 150, 160.
Yeah.
And it was available in multiple spots there too. He also played good in the Korn Ferry Tour stuff to get his card back there. I think he finished 10th, 4th, and 41st. I think in those 3 events. Once again, he's a guy that plays good when we're in weaker fields there. He's also a guy that makes a good amount of birdies and plays good on easy golf courses, right? His game's kind of improved over the last year. He's gone from, just kind of on the outskirts of having status or Monday qualifying to get in events, right? And then he all of a sudden became pretty consistent, right? Well, if you look, he actually played this event the last 2 years and made the cut both times. And that was when he wasn't as good of a player as he is now, too. Right. So you kind of got that lurking out there, too, to where I think this is one where he makes the cut, and you're sitting on plus 250 out of basically 65, 70 guys that made the cut to finish top 40. You're going to have probably 15 or 20 guys that made the cut this week that really are much worse players than Whaley in terms of long-term form, just because they kind of lucked into making the cut here. So you're going to have some guys explode on the weekend here. I think Whaley's consistent enough to get the top 40 for us. Plus 250 is definitely a bargain. Yeah,
I'm with you. And you've got one here that overlaps with me a little bit here.
Yep, I took Charley Hoffman. So Hoffman's the guy that you bet to win here. I took a minus 120 for top 40 here. This is available on FanDuel. This number is a bit egregious myself, I think, here. I make this number about minus 185, minus 190. He's done it, I think, 12 of his last 15 events. And now we're in an event that's a heck of a lot weaker field. Hoffman's made, I think, all but one cut in about his last 20 events. So if he makes the cut, like we said, there's going to be a lot of guys that are not great making the cut. Top 40 doesn't seem that hard to get there. And if we look at odds like to make the cut, he's minus 250 to minus 300 everywhere to make the cut, but minus 120 for top 40. There's a big disconnect there because every time he makes the cut, he pretty much finishes top 40, especially in weaker fields, because he just doesn't have those bad days just because he's hitting the ball so good. He's the number one player in the model that I have this week in terms of all the stats and breakdown like that. He's number one guy in birdies in this field, number 2 in par 5 scoring, and number 1 in approach play. That's a really good combination for this week. So I can definitely see why you bet him at the number to win. This is kind of similar reason why I bet him here for top 40.
Yeah, he just does everything well, and like it sort of covers up. And you come to a course that chipping is the worst part of his game, and you come to a course that really doesn't demand it because he's going to hit a ton of greens with his good approach play. And when one facet of his game isn't working, we've talked about like a number of guys that do this that are, consistently in this like 50 to 1, 60 to 1 range, that they're just good at everything. So, this was like the Berger thing. I'm not saying he's Berger now, but Berger a few, 2 years ago when we right out of like that COVID restart, it was like he's just doing everything well. So if the approach struggles, he's getting up and down, and if the driving struggles a little bit, the approach game is saving it, or the putter saving it. So like if he can just get one or two aspects of his game working, he tends to do pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. And he finished 6th and 23rd in his 2 times he's played it the last 2 years. So all the signs kind of point there to Hoffman. Okay, so in terms of the other bets we have, I'll have some head-to-head bets posted out in the bet pack there at elitesportsbetting.com, and also my round-by-round bets. If there's any value out there, I'll post those out there as well tomorrow on Wednesday. Other than that, I think that's pretty much everything that we have for this week. Anything else you want to say here before we head off, Frank?
Yeah, Elite Betting on Twitch. You can follow us there. Elite Sports Network on YouTube. We're doing videos pretty much every day now throughout the week, so you'll get notifications when we go live and when we get the bets in. Like Paulie said, it's been like a crazy good couple weeks here for us. So if you follow along, you can get some free bets along the way. And if you're interested, sign up at elitesportsbetting.com to get all of our plays here.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.